Continued from the previous file, Riders to the Sea, page 43. To Connemara to sell his pony in the fair. He asked for the piece of rope he had brought from the fair, for the funeral of Michael, who had been drowned in the sea 9 days ago, and no traces of his dead body had been discovered as yet. Bartley wanted the rope to make a halter for the horse he would ride to reach the seashore. Moria did not like that Bartley should cross the stormy sea, for she had her own misgivings about the fate of Bartley. Nor would she part with the rope, which was to be used for lowering the coffin of Michael into the grave, in case the dead body were found. She had kept a rope and fine white planks ready for the decent burial of Michael. If Bartley took away the rope, and meanwhile the dead body of Michael were brought home, and the funeral had to be arranged, neighbors would find fault with her as a pitiless and irresponsible woman who had allowed her only surviving menfolk to go out when he was badly needed to make the coffin. With this argument, the bereaved mother tried to hold back Bartley. But Bartley was resolute. Go he must. Bartley is sad and silent, but it is the fate of young men to go to sea. Number 3 from page 6. It's not it a hard and cruel man won't hear a word from an old woman, and she holding him from the sea. Moria has tried hard to prevent her last surviving son Bartley from going out to sea for his journey to Galway. The sea is rough and the weather is violent. Moreover, she has dark misgivings about the fate of her last son. She is borne down with grief for the drowning of her 5th son Michael, whose dead body has not yet been traced. She argues with Bartley, appeals to him, but all these are of no avail. Bartley is resolute to go. He gets his purse and tobacco and gives necessary instructions to his sisters. He expects to return in 2 days or 3 days or 4 days. Moria is angry with the cruel, obstinate son. She rebukes her son for not hearing his old mother, who warns him not to go out. This is the confrontation between mother and son. The conflict between Moria and the sea takes the form of the conflict between mother and son. Bartley must go because it is the inescapable duty of a young man to go to sea for earning the livelihood for the family. It is inevitable fate of a woman in the islands to weep and wait. Number 4 from page 6. It is the life of a young man up to saying it over. Kathleen says this to her mother as a rebuff to her continuous crying and complaining. Moria has been entreating Bartley not to go. She has been doing this since Bartley came in. Kathleen rebukes her mother for her continuous talks to hold son back from the sea. Page 44. A young man cannot listen to all these and stay at home all through his life, for the sea will never be calm as Moria wants it to be. Kathleen is a practical, matter-of-fact girl. She knows that the sea is the dominating presence in their life, and they cannot avoid the sea. Seafaring is the main occupation of the main folk of the island. Moria is a bereaved mother, and so she behaves in an emotional manner in spite of her greater experience. But Kathleen represents the practical attitude of the women of the islands. Number 5 from page 7. In the big world, the old people up to that do be told old. These are the pathetic words of Moria, uttered in a very tragic context. Bartley had gone out of his journey, bidding goodbye to the mother and sisters. Moria was cross with him for his perversity in not listening to her persuasive appeals for holding him back. She cried out in his ears that they would not see him again. Kathleen rebuked the mother for her cruel word and asked her to run after Bartley for giving him blessing and bread. Thus rebuked, the mother tottered out of the cottage. Kathleen asked Nora to bring out the stick that Michael had brought for his own use from the market at Connemara. As Moria took the stick, she made this sad comment on the tragedy of her lot. It is the general order of the world at large that the old people die, leaving their things to the children by way of legacy, and the latter use them in their everyday life. But such is the life of these islanders that the natural order of things has been completely reversed. Here young men die before their mothers, leaving their things for the use of the surviving mothers. This is the wretched lot of Moria. All her sons are gone, and the last one also is marked for doom. All their belongings are still in the house, and the fashionable walking stick that Michael had brought from the market in the mainland as an article of luxury is now used by the old weak mother as an article of necessity. A greater irony of fate cannot be imagined. Number 6 from page 7. It is destroyed he will be surely. There is no sense left on any person in a house where an old woman will be talking forever. These words are spoken by Kathleen in J. M. Singh's one-act tragedy Riders to the Sea. Moria has been trying to stop her son from going to the sea because the weather is rough and there is a danger of Bartley perishing in the sea. Bartley has, however, gone away without heeding his mother's warning. Kathleen suddenly remembers that they have forgotten to give the baked cake to Bartley. Page 45. She feels sorry, and Nora is sad to think that Bartley will have nothing to eat during his journey. Kathleen and Nora feel that Bartley will be in a miserable condition without having anything to eat during the long journey. Nora points out that Bartley has eaten nothing in the morning. Kathleen puts the blame on the mother. She says that nobody can do his or her duties carefully in a house where an old woman like Moria keeps whining and talking endlessly. Everyone's attention is bound to be distracted. Both Kathleen and Nora are deeply worried about their brother. They blame their mother for their negligence in the duties. As a matter of fact, all members of the house are now bitter and sorrowful because of the misery of the family and a sense of coming disaster. Kathleen does not want to hurt the feelings of the mother. She says this out of a general sense of bitterness and sorrow. Number 7 from page 9. Ah, Nora, isn't it a bitter up to flying on the sea? As Moria, rebuked by Kathleen, goes out to give Bartley her blessing and bread, Kathleen and Nora take up the bundle that was brought to them by the village priest, who had said that the contents of the bundle were a shirt and stocking which belonged to a dead body that had been picked up in the Donegal to the north. They begin to examine the contents, but the evidences do not lead them for a definite conclusion. At last, Nora solves the problem, saying that the number of stitches in the stocking exactly tallies with the number which she had made herself in the stocking of Michael. Hence, there is little doubt that the dead body found at Donegal was Michael's. At this, Kathleen gives way to wild outbursts of tears and lamentations. She thought that the dead body had been washed as far as Donegal, and there was none there to keep the customary keen at the funeral was bitter to her. The belief was prevalent among these primitive people that only a decent funeral with the customary kin, that is weeping and lamentation over the dead body by the women, could ensure peace and rest to the soul in the other world. As Michael was drowned in the sea, it was only the black hags hovering over the sea that sang the dirge. It is only these spirit women, quote, water wreaths, unquote, as they were called, that sang the doleful song over the dead body. It is a bitter thing to contemplate, and this adds to the pathos and horror of the death. Number 8, from page 9. I have seen the fearfulest thing, continued too, with the child in his arms. These words are spoken by Moria to her daughters Kathleen and Nora. Moria had gone over to the spring well in order to hand over, page 46, the packet containing some bread to her son Bartley. She was unable to give her the bread. In fact, she was unable even to offer her good wishes and blessings to her son. Moria says that she had seen a most terrifying sight at the spring well where she was waiting for Bartley. She had seen the ghost of Michael riding on the grey pony behind Bartley, who was riding on the red mare. This is the most horrifying sight. She says that nobody had seen such a frightening sight since the day when bride Dara saw dead man holding a child in his arms. Moria is evidently referring to some legend current among the people. A woman was believed to have seen a dead man holding a child in his arms. This was a most horrible sight. These words create a frightening effect of supernatural mystery. Moreover, these words testify to the superstitions of the people of the island. The sight seen by Moria is regarded as an ill omen. Number 9, from page 10. Bartley came first on the red mare, continued to say nothing. In these words, Moria reports to her daughters what had happened when she had gone after Bartley to give him her blessing and bread as he set out on his journey. She was waiting by the spring well to see Bartley come up. Bartley came up on the red mare, which was followed by the grey pony. She tried to bless him, saying, "May God speed you," that is, may God give you a safe and prosperous journey. But the words stuck in her throat. She could not utter the words, however much she tried. Something choked her voice. As Bartley passed by, he said to her, quote, "The blessings of God upon you," unquote. In such a case, the mother should have said Amen to him. But Amen stuck in her throat. She could not bless her son because she was overwhelmed by the forebodings of her son's impending death. She cannot utter words of prayer because she has dark misgivings and forebodings which make her estranged from God. Number 10, from page 12. I'll have no call now, continued to Wilby Keening. These are the words of Moria, uttered to herself as it were, when the dead body of Bartley is brought to the cottage and the two daughters along with the neighborly women keep the keen as they kneel by the table on which the dead body is kept. Moria, who lay prostrate with grief, now raises her head and speaks as if she did not see the people around her. She says to herself that the hungry sea has done its worst on her. It has now taken away her last son. There is not anything more the sea can do to her. While her sons were alive, she was restless with anxiety for their safety. The rise of the south wind, the sound of the waves breaking on the rocks in the east or west would make her restive. Page 47. In the dark nights after the Celtic festival of Samhain, used to go down to the church and bring the holy water from the font, which had the power of averting evil influences, and sprinkled it over the sons. All this she had done for the well-being and safety of her sons, but these were of no avail. Now that Bartley is gone, she has no need of all this. She will care no more when the sea is stormy and the sound of the keen by the women of the neighborhood over a dead man is carried on the wind and reaches her ears. In the past, these things made her terribly nervous to think of the safety of her sons as they were out on the sea, and sometimes her worst apprehensions came out true, for keening neighbors brought a dead son of hers to the cottage. All this has now ended, and she will now enjoy sleep in perfect repose and calm. Number 11, from page 13. It isn't that I haven't continued up to time surely. In bracket, context the same as above, bracket closed. Moria now rises up, covers the feet of dead Bartley so that the holy water from the church, which she will presently sprinkle over the body, might not fall on the feet. Kneeling down at the head of the table, Moria indulges in the keen over the dead body of Bartley. She speaks here sorrowfully how she had kept long watches during the night and prayed for the well-being and safety of Bartley, who was her last surviving son and the prop of her desolate life. Bartley would sleep soundly, little knowing the prayers that she had said for night after night in the darkness. She thus prayed to the Almighty, invoking His blessings on Bartley. But all her prayers have been in vain. Bartley's life is not spared by the cruel sea. He is the last of the riders to the sea in the family. The sea has done its worst on the poor peasant family. With Bartley's death, gone are all her restless prayers and worries for the son. She will now spend the days of her life in rest and peace. She will not pray any further. She will have no worries, no anxious observation of the changing moods of the sea, or the sound and direction of the sea wind will she have now. Thus peace and calm have settled over the soul with the passing away of the last of her menfolk. Number 12, from page 13. It's a great rest I'll have, continued to would he stinking. In bracket, context the same as above, bracket closed. With passing away of Bartley, all the restless cares and worries, the nightly prayers and watches of Moria have come to an end. She cares no more for the sea which has devoured her all. She will now enjoy the sweet sleep in the dark winter nights that comes with the beginning of the Celtic year in November. Samhain is the festival of the New Year day in the Celtic calendar. With the fall of the year, page 48, begin the long, dark, wintry nights. In the lifetime of Bartley and the other sons of Moria, she had no sleep in the long, chilly and stormy nights of the winter. The sea howls and roars for its toll of human lives. The heart of the mother had known no peace because of her constant anxiety for the sons. She kept awake while the sons slept and prayed to God Almighty for the long life and happiness of her sons. With the last earning member of the family gone now, they will now live a life of grim poverty and want. There will be none to procure fuel and bread for them. They will have to eat the unbaked dough with the stale, stinking, uncooked fish. But the mother does not complain against this hard lot. At least she will have now peace and rest. The sea will have no terrors for her. Moria's bitter sorrow is now replaced by deep, calm sorrow. She expresses her sense of relief, but actually she is borne down by grief and she tries to endure it with stoic calm. Number 13. From page 13. It's a great wonder she won't up to maid already. As Moria is keening and weeping over the dead body of Bartley, the practical Kathleen applies herself to the task of arranging the funeral for the next morning. She asks an old man present there to bring Eamon and other villagers next morning and make the coffin. The fine white boards for the coffin are ready, for they have been brought for Michael's funeral, and now these will serve the purpose of Bartley's burial with a grim irony of fate. The old man inquires if the nails are there. Kathleen apologizes that in their broken-hearted grief they had forgotten about the nails. These are the words of mild rebuke from the old man for the conduct of Moria. It appears to the old man that Moria had forgotten about the nails. Death and coffin are not something new in the family. She has seen so many deaths and prepared so many coffins for the dead that by this time she is to be expected to be perfectly experienced and practical in these matters. Nails are necessary for joining the wooden planks, and without nails there can be no coffin. It is therefore strange that Moria in her grief had all forgotten about the nails. This is the grim comment on the callous indifference to death that the villagers have developed from their experience of deaths which are almost a daily affair with them. The words of the old man remind one of the grave diggers seen in Hamlet in their grimly comic irony. Number 14. From page 13. She is quiet now and easy. Continue to thought that. After keening over the dead body of Michael, which was shrouded with Michael's clothes, Moria proceeds to the funeral ceremony of page 49. Michael's death too, though the body has not been recovered. She spreads out the pieces of cloth of Michael beside the dead body of Bartley and sprinkles the last drop of the holy water over them. To her, the dead body of Bartley serves the double purpose of representing both Michael and Bartley. It is a grim and horrible picture of a grief-demented mother. Moria is now a picture of calm and patient grief. The simple Nora, the younger daughter, notices this calm of the mother's mind and has her own views and explanations on this strange conduct of the mother. She remembers how on the day of Michael's death the mother was wild with grief when the news was broken to her. She ran from the cottage to the spring well on the road, crying bitterly for the dead son. She was, as it were, mad with grief, and nobody could console her, so disconsolate had she become. But today she is a picture of calm and endurance. There is no loud lamentation, no bitter weeping and tearing of hair. The contrast picture of Moria makes the tender little Nora conclude that the mother loved Michael more than Bartley. Michael was her precious darling who obeyed the mother faithfully, but Bartley was rather obstinate and went to the sea in spite of the dissuasions of the mother. This is the simple line of argument of the simple child. She had not the maturity and intelligence to see through the calm grief of the mother and gave her own native explanation of the fact. Kathleen tells Nora that the mother has been thoroughly exhausted with 9 days continuous crying and keening, and has no tears and wails left for the mourning over Bartley. But not that she loves Michael more than Bartley. Number 15 from page 14. Michael has a clear burial up to be satisfied. These are the concluding words of the keening and weeping of Moria over the body of Bartley. As she paused for a short while, the keen rose a little more loudly from the women and then sank away. Probably they thought that Moria had ended her business. Moria resumes her words and utters these sentences which take us deep into her heart. Quote, a calm of mind, all passions spent, unquote, has settled over her. The tears have been dried up. She is perfectly reconciled to her lot. No loud whining, crying, lamentations, etc. now come from her. She finds comfort from the thought that though the dead body of Michael was not brought to the cottage and to her, it has been given a decent burial in Donegal by the kindness and generosity of the Christian folk of that place. The case of Bartley is far otherwise. His body is now before her. The ceremonial keen has been just performed, and tomorrow it will be laid down in a deep grave. Continued in the next file.